Welcome back to a bit gamey and another / revised tips video. I was saying before in the previous one that as well as having the what you're working on, also a bunch of what's going to be worked on next, and don't prime them or anything, and just pick them up every now and again when you're in a break and you're painting, and go looking for more stray mould lines. And that did kind of work in that I did find new ones every time, but as soon as you've got the primer on, you just notice the new ones. So I don't know if that's really a solution to the whole mould line issue. I think the solution is either be the sort of methodical, thorough sort of a person who makes sure to get all the mould lines off in one go, or if that's not an option for you personally, like me, then maybe painting it, maybe priming it is actually the better way to find mould lines, because there's more obvious when they're especially with a light coloured primer. Just whack that on. So basically, pre-prime lots of stuff. Have lots of your next 2 or 3 loads, waves of stuff to do. Have them all primed, and then when you're in a break between your painting, you just go and scrape it off again. So it doesn't mean you have to re-prime them again, or reprime the little bits you've scraped off. But obviously the ideal solution is to be thorough and methodical. Now, ideally, when you're doing your basing, you'll know in advance what you're trying to achieve. You have your basing scheme all sorted out. But if you're getting back into wargaming and you just you've watched lots of videos, or you've got various rule sets and you're not entirely sure how you want to base things, then that can cause various problems. Now with me, after trial and error, I kind of finally ended up figuring out what I wanted for ancients, which is I had 50mm bases by accident. That's just from because I had some of them at the beginning, but that works out quite nicely for what I want for ancients. 6 figures for pikes, 4 for standard infantry, 3 for barbarians, 3 for kind of civilized archer types, 2 for skirmishers. Oops, put that down. 2 for skirmishers, and 2 for heavy cavalry. So that's all good. I mean, it took a while. It took a while to actually get to that point. So, however, it would have been a lot better if instead of basing them all, fully basing them first and then changing my mind after, if I'd done something like this instead. Because on my list of basing for ancients, the last thing is light cavalry, and I'm not sure how to do it yet. I mean, there's 3 options that I've got. Well, 3-ish. One is single base, a single figure on a base. So that'll be like that, or 6 figures, but staggered. So still effectively 1 figure on a base, but staggered. So it's like that kind of single figure base with others as spaces, blank ones as spaces, like that. Or alternately, have them again single fingers, but sideways, glued to the side. So there's still 6 bases with 1 figure on, but they're like that, and then the second row would have it glued onto the other side. And the point about that is not the details, but the method. Is that if I'd done this from the beginning, these are just glued on with PVA, so they'll pop off easily. and not finishing the hole, not flocking or anything like that. So if you're getting back into it and you're not sure what kind of basing scheme you're going to end up with, then I think this is a good tip. Just glue them on with PVA, don't finish them, and just leave them. I've had these sitting around for a couple of days now, just waiting to see what pops into my head, of what's the best solution overall. Because I'm gradually drifting towards a solution. I like this idea. Three kind of very small base. Sorry, single figure basing, but 3 to a unit for weak cavalry nations, and then for the more powerful or famous as being a cavalry nation like Persians or Sarmatians or something. Do it more like that with 6 figures staggered. But instead of having single base, but I haven't decided yet entirely where I use single bases or double bases where they're glued to one side. So I'll leave that there for a bit longer while I'm figuring out. I say if I'd done this from the beginning, then I would have saved myself lots of trouble cutting, having to rebase things afterwards. So I think that's a good tip overall. The other thing about that is there's kind of 3 standard ways of basing stuff. You've got what I think of as the impetus or to the strongest method, which is where you have a single large base for a unit, and that is definitely the best option in terms of visually. I think aesthetically it's definitely it's the nicest. But I have this kind of OCD thing where because especially in ancients, the number of times you need your units to be in a kind of column formation is pretty much never really. But I need it for OCD reasons. So the first kind of way of basing is one big base for the unit, and the second way is what I think of as the Hail Caesar way, where you've got multiple bases. And the thing is, you can do both by doing it this way, because you can just do individual Hail Caesar type bases, and then if you're playing impetus or to the strongest, you just use the movement tray as a unit instead. So there's that, and then there's the third way of basing, which is where you have like in Warhammer Fantasy, we have a movement tray with lots of individual bases, and you can do all 3 in one go if you get bases like not like this, but the MGF versions, which have got 4 holes or 6 holes or whatever number of holes you want, and then you put them in individually. So you've got a base like this, but they're put in individually. And then if you're doing Hail Caesar, then that's fine. They count as bases. And if you're doing to the strongest, you put them in something like this, and that counts as a whole unit. Or you leave them individually in their bases, and just take pull the figures out individually if you want for the whatever the Warhammer Fantasy type way of doing it. So you can have all 3 at once. I mean, say you lose the visualness of the to the strongest method of having a whole single big base. But for me, that's not an option because of my OCD need for them to be in column or to be able to be put in column. But I'm experimented with the doing all 3 at once yet. But I've got some bases with holes, so I'm going to do not ancients, but when I finally get back to my horse and musket, I'm going to try that with them. Having bases with 4 holes, basing the figures individually, and then putting the bases on one of these to count as a unit if I ever wanted to. So anyway, blah 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 blah. What am I talking about? Yeah. So the details aren't important. The important thing is the method. Glue them on with PVA and then leave them around until you decided what way you want to do it. So this is this is not really that relevant to anyone who's been doing it for years, but if you're new or going back into wargaming after years, then there's so many different rule sets and stuff. You're going to end up you're likely to end up basing things wrong, or at least basing things in a way you don't like afterwards. And so that's my tip. I think that's a worthwhile tip. Just glue them on with PVA, and then wait and see how you feel once you've had it like that for a while. And the last thing, which I mentioned in the previous update video, but I wanted to mention it again just in case it's helpful, is if you do mess up and you base things like plastic figures on plastic bases with plastic glue, it actually kind of melts the plastic and kind of welds it together, which makes it very unpleasant to try and get the figures off. And the way I found that worked is, you get some clippers like this, and you scrape off all the other stuff on the base, and then you get the clippers underneath, and you can go around the edges bit by bit, cutting through the weldy bit, and that does work. The only problem is a lot of the cutters like this, they've got this kind of diagonal thing. So if you go too far in, the diagonal pushes the base up and it all gets mangled. So you can do it at the cost of mangling your base. But what I'm thinking of doing is getting another set of cutters that are much flatter, a chunky set of cutters which are much flatter, so you can get right to the middle of the base without totally mangling it. So in the end, I'm thinking of mainly 3 sets of cutters in the end. A kind of delicate sort of cutters for soft, or very small, kind of fragile plastic parts. A chunkier set of cutters which can do for chunky plastic and metal, and then this third set for emergency base renovation. But we'll see on that. But anyway, that's the main thing. If you're not 100% sure what you want, what size of bases you want, or what number of figures on the base, or any of that stuff, just glue them with PVA. Don't finish the base, just glue them with PVA, and then sit them on the shelf and look at them until your favourite pops into your head. Okay, to